UFC Vegas 18. The Reem keeps it going. Number 5 in the world, taking on number 6 in the world, Alexander Volkov. Um, Gut reaction to this fight, Brad. What do you think?
This is a big one. I feel like this is, well, they kind of all are for Overeem at this point on this very last run. They're all essential because, like, one really bad loss at this level, that's it. That ends his run towards the title. He's already up against it with the top two guys contending for the belt right now, having both beat him very badly. But there's still a chance. There's always a chance for the Reem, man. He's right there. One win. He's one more win away from a title shot. So he's right there. It's very essential for Overeem to get this win to kind of finish out his career with this last push towards the title. For Volkov on the other side, this is like he's had now two kind of runs where they've started to like push him up towards the top of the division, and both times he got stopped pretty handily. He got knocked out by Derek Lewis. Then they were like, "All right, let's take you back, and you'll fight um, uh, old NFL boy Hardy." And then they're like, "Okay, cool, get you another elite guy." And Blades wrestled him to death. So now, but he looked really good, strong finish in that last fight against Harris. So he can get a big win over Overeem. That puts him like top 3, maybe 4 at heavyweight, which is not a bad place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think Volkov continues to be the dark horse. He's had a couple tough losses in the UFC, but I mean, I really do think that he's skill for skill just as good as anyone else in the division. It's just that he can be stopped. Clearly, he has been. So, and like you said about Overeem, to kind of circle back to him, I really think any loss really, um, it's one of those things where yeah, we're witnessing a final run of Overeem. He's stated as much. Which means every fight is way more important because yeah, even a lackluster decision dropped to Volkov, which is entirely possible with how Volkov fights. Um, Sets him back, even if it just sets him back a few fights. Overeem has stated he doesn't have a few fights. He's got, I mean, I can't remember the exact number he throws out, but it's like under 4. He really is thinking like maybe a title could make it extend out further than that, but I think this really is the last hurrah from Overeem, and yeah, this is a tough test for him because Volkov isn't exactly a young gun. He's tried and tested, just like Overeem is, but yeah, man, a loss for either guy isn't good, but for a loss for Overeem, um, I mean, I don't necessarily want to call it a career ender, but it might be.
This is an interesting point that I just thought of, especially speaking to Volkov specifically. This is it ties directly into my issue that I have with Stipe being champion. Is Stipe in these last 3 and 4 years of fighting and defending the belt once a year has logjammed the top of the division so badly that there is a distinct pecking order between 1 and 5 of like guys that should have gotten title shots but they didn't. And so you've got Stipe as champion, Francis clearly number 1, who's knocked out Curtis Blades twice. Then you've got Curtis Blades right underneath that, who's beaten everyone else in the division, beaten Volkov badly, right? Who's clearly the next guy, but he can't get past Francis. And then underneath that, you got Volkov. It's like all these guys, it's like they should have had title shots, but they didn't, and so they're stuck in this top 5 at heavyweight. And I'm like, and then none of them are going to get the next title shot. It's John's. John's not even in
Yeah,
this mix. And so it's like, this is what's crazy. You've got over the next month, you have 4 heavyweight main events. You got this, Then you go into Curtis Blades and Derek Lewis. And then you go into Rosenstruck versus Cyril Gahn. And then there's another one that I forgot right now. And it's Stipe and Francis too, obviously, the title fight. It's great that the top of the division is like going crazy right now, and I'm like, man, I just want that title to be defended. I really just want Francis to win it so we can get it defended. Man, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's such a good division, and it's like it was dry for a lot of years. It was like 2010 to like 2015. It was like it was a dusty wasteland of injured Cain Velasquez all the time. And now I'm like, man, there's like young guys coming up. Like, let's go.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a matchmaking conundrum too, because when you have these guys at the top of the division log jammed to the point where they either fight each other or sit on the shelf, they all end up fighting each other. So when one of those guys does eventually become champion, in a way they've already cleared out the division because they had to beat the
Everyone.
other top guys
Yeah.
on their way there, just to, more or less bide time
Yeah.
when with a division as log jammed as heavyweight. Yeah, man, it's a really tough. I would just expect to see in the next few years a lot of rematches for gold.
I mean, we have to. I mean, look at
Yeah,
the situation you're in. Like, Francis is everything you just described. Curtis Blades has clearly demonstrated that he's the guy that's the young guy that can beat everyone beneath him. He's been knocked out twice by
yep.
Francis. It's like, good lord, these weren't even for belts yet. And now I'm like, man, at top of the division, if Curtis Blades beats Derek Lewis, I'm like, man, that division's in a real rough spot. Because, like, what do you do with Derek, or what do you do with Curtis Blades? What are you doing?
Well, and that's kind of the well, it's not depressing for Curtis Blades, but all the data we have to work with suggests that it's a pretty good chance he does beat Derek Lewis, and then we're
As a
right
skill
back where
too.
we were.
Yes.
We have I don't know if I pulled it for the rest of the show, but um, Rosenstruck and Gone are apparently facing down in a main event slot. So there's them taking each other out. Um, yeah, man,
Yeah.
it's the UFC right now. If I could categorize, there's just so few clear cut divisions right now. Like they're all a mess in their own little way.
Yeah.
Yeah, heavyweight's got too many guys. You have an inactive champ. Middleweight, the champion's gone. Lightweight, the champion is retired, but the UFC doesn't want to be.
Just doesn't want to acknowledge it.
Featherweight, the clear cut number one guy besides the champion, has already been beaten by the champion twice. It just goes on. It goes on.
A lot
I
of
think
funky stuff.
bantamweight is working roughly how it's supposed to. Flyweight is working roughly how it's supposed to. The women's divisions are just so oppressed by their champions, not through inactivity, but just through like the rinse and repeat cycle of defenses because the skull gap is too large. Yeah, man, it's the whole thing top to bottom, except for like I said, flyweight and bantamweight are kind of working the way they're supposed to. Yeah, and speaking of bantamweight,